Welcome back to the game table. We've got a special one today. The cooperative worldwide disease game, Pandemic. This one is authored by Matt Leacock and first published by Z-Man Games back in 2007. In the game world of Pandemic, each player assumes the role of a disease-fighting specialist, including a scientist, a medic, a researcher, and a dispatcher. According to the back of the box, you and your companions are highly skilled members of a disease-fighting team waging a battle against 4 deadly diseases. You must work together using your individual strengths to destroy the diseases before they overtake the world. Will you find the cures in time? The fate of humanity is in your hands. Pandemic is special because it's one of the very few cooperative board games in which all players win or all players lose, as they race to beat the game as it devolves. What drives the game is a card drawing mechanic that dictates how the disease cubes spread to various adjacent cities across the globe. The goal of the game is to collectively discover the cure for each of the 4 colored disease cubes. It's nearly impossible to eradicate all the disease cubes, so players must balance suppressing the spread of the disease cubes while simultaneously discovering the various cures. Since each player takes on a role with unique abilities, the game encourages cooperation and strategy for every turn. If the players are not coordinated, one wrong move often has a butterfly effect that can persist until their untimely demise and loss of the game. I agree with the listed 45-minute game time once players are familiar with the rules. Setup usually takes less than 5 minutes. Each player is dealt a unique role card, and there are 2 decks of cards to prepare. The player deck of cards is used as a draw pile for your hand of cards, and the disease deck drives the spread of diseases to various cities. The last step of setup is to populate the world with some initial disease cubes to spice things up. The player cards are fairly straightforward. Most of the cards represent a city in the world and are associated with a certain disease color: red, blue, black, and yellow. The city cards can be used to expedite your movement around the world. And once the players have collected enough of a specific color, they can be used to discover the cure for that disease. Some player cards offer unique abilities that include suppressing the spread of disease and discovering cures. On each player's turn, they normally draw disease cards and place disease cubes on those cities. Unless, of course, the drawn disease card is actually an epidemic. During the deck preparation, you shuffle a number of hidden epidemic cards into the disease deck, according to how painfully difficult you want to make the game for you and your comrades. Each time the players draw an epidemic card, which is unavoidable, the infection rate marker moves up, which increases the number of disease cards everyone has to draw on their turn. Another interesting mechanic is that cities can only have a maximum of 3 disease cubes of one color on them. If that limit is to be exceeded, then an outbreak occurs, which causes disease cubes to spread to all adjacent cities. Too many outbreaks and everyone loses. Speaking of which, there are several ways to lose the game, but only one way to win, so it can be quite challenging depending on how your luck plays out. The popularity of this game is well deserved. Amongst friends and family, this is often the preferred game depending on how many people we have. The thematic element to the game is something that everyone can relate to, and the rules are really easy to learn. Game setup and cleanup is quick and easy. One minor gripe I have with this game is dependent on the group of people you're playing with. Because each turn counts, and the game is quite difficult, the cooperative element to the game can sometimes result in long turns. Other small complaints I had were actually addressed in the game's first expansion, On the Brink, which modified the abilities of some of the original roles and added new roles to introduce new strategies to the game. Speaking of which, the base game has had a couple different editions and expansions released. This is the first edition copy. I bought it when the game first came out. Since then, the second edition overhauled the artwork and added some new roles to the base game. After On the Brink, they added 2 more expansions, In the Lab and State of Emergency. I won't cover them in detail now, but I will say that they play a bit differently than the original game. There was a period where Pandemic was my favorite game. It's refreshing to remove the player versus player competitive element from a game and have everyone working cooperatively towards a shared goal. I'd say, on average, we win about 50% of the games, playing with 4 people. I can't help but feel that there are some scenarios that, despite your best efforts, result in a no-win situation. I give Pandemic an 8.5 out of 10. Another highly regarded game with a cooperative element is Shadows over Camelot, and it might be worth checking out if you enjoy Pandemic. I hope you'll join me next time, because I'm going to be reviewing one of the most successful and best-selling modern board games, Settlers of Catan. You won't want to miss it. Game setup is Settlers of Catan. You won't want to miss it.